what pitfalls to watch out for and things that might set you up for failure. So who is the Memorial Man? Of course, like I said, I'm John Howard. I'm the owner and operator of the Memorial Man. I'm also a husband and a father of five. When you do any kind of business or anything, of course you got to have your why. My why is my family. I'm accompanied by my wonderful, beautiful wife, Katie, here. We are getting ready to celebrate 19 years of marriage. I'm disabled, but I'm not disabled. I have a form of muscular dystrophy, but the only disability that I really have is being able to sit down for too long. I tend to get involved in all kinds of different things, in just different industries, different businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so that's just what I do. I've got 18 years industry experience in the memorial industry. I started out hand engraving death dates, sitting in front of headstones. Wasn't the funnest thing to do, but it paid the bills. I'm also a business and marketing coach. We recently just launched the coaching side of things. I've been in the marketing world doing my own marketing for as long as I've been in the industry, really about 18 years. I've also been featured on local news stations in Virginia, CBS 6 Richmond, and NBC 29 Charlottesville, and Feel Good Stories for Goodwill events that I've been a part of. My goal here today is to unpack the industry for you guys. Like I said before, want to make sure that you guys are aware of common pitfalls that might trip you up along the way if you are deciding to step foot into the memorial industry. By show of hands, who's already involved in the industry? Alrighty. And is everybody here planning on trying your hand at the memorial industry? Very good. Alrighty. So that is our goal here today, to make sure that you guys leave here educated, empowered, and encouraged. Our main topics of discussion, not to be redundant, but we are going to go over a few things that have already been talked about here today. Resources for developing a business plan, business structure, professional licensing, specifically for the industry, insurance requirements, monument types. We got a short video going to show you guys about the actual installation of a monument. Cemetery types, rules, and fees. That's a big one. And then the steps to sell an actual monument. So on the pet side of things, this is going to be more geared towards larger monuments, large-scale monuments for individuals, not necessarily for pets, but a lot of it's still going to pertain to what you plan to do. Because even in the pet side of things, depending on if somebody plans on purchasing a pet memorial that's going to sit in a pet cemetery, you might have some rules and regulations that you have to be in compliance with. The guys before me, was it Frank and William? They were talking earlier about the SBDC, which is a great resource for sure. If you are in a remote area and you just can't get to the local SBDC, here's a great resource for you. This is the Santa Clara University. They are an accredited school over in California. As you see, free business online courses, how to write a business plan, and how to finance your business. I know they went over business structure a little bit, but I wanted to unpack this one especially. It laid heavy on my heart to really talk about the LLC here. We're not going to dive too much into the other stuff, but especially because they talked about it previously, I want to unpack it a little bit more so you guys fully understand what you're dealing with. Who here has launched an LLC before? Who here knows what an operating agreement is? Very good. All right, so for those that don't know, if you're going to launch an LLC, you want to be in compliance with your state. An operating agreement is an agreement that serves as a crucial document for your business, establishing its credibility as a legitimate entity. In its absence, there is a risk that your state may not recognize your business as an LLC. What that means is, what that means to you is, even though you have an LLC, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are protected. Your personal assets can still be at risk. Some states require you to have an operating agreement. Even if your state does not require it, I encourage you to put one in place. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a financial expert. I've just been doing this a long time. I know what I run into. And speaking from personal experience, you're definitely going to want to look into this. If you are running a nonprofit, you don't have a choice but to have an operating agreement in place, because that's what's going to identify tax risks, who is responsible for what within the business, and so on and so forth. That's what separates your personal assets from your actual company. Licensing. They touched on licensing a little bit. In this industry specifically, you're going to want to get with in Virginia, it's the State Corporation Commission. In Louisiana, it's the Secretary of State. In Maryland, it's the Department of Occupational Regulations. Find out whoever your governing body is that's going to tell you what kind of licensing requirements you have for your industry, well, for this industry specifically. In the state of Maryland, as I mentioned, this is me here highlighted in yellow. I am a registered seller there. You have to, it doesn't matter what you plan to do in the state of Maryland. Is anybody from Maryland? No? All right, so one back here. It doesn't matter what you plan to do in Maryland. Pet cemeteries, pet memorials, regular memorials, you have to be licensed through Maryland, through the Office of Cemetery Oversight specifically. Without this, the cemeteries in Maryland will reject everything that you try to send to their cemeteries. Whether you're taking it there yourself, whether you've got an online store, it doesn't matter, it's going to get rejected. Insurance requirements. This is a big one. In Virginia, we deal with the Archdiocese of Washington. It's the Catholic cemeteries. It doesn't matter what state you're in. If you're dealing with a Catholic cemetery, you have to be in compliance with their insurance requirements, and there are specific steps that you have to take to be able to even step foot onto their properties. I'm going to direct your attention to the right-hand side of the screen. I totally meant to highlight that. But you'll notice here, the workers' compensation, we're going to unpack that just a little bit more here in a second. Automotive liability, general liability. $1 million policies to be able to get into this cemetery or any of their cemeteries within the DMV area. And then on the left side of the screen here, excuse me, sorry, walk across everything. You're going to notice a fee schedule. You've got stakeout fees, endowment care fees, and this it continues down to just give you the steps to get your designs approved, to get your stakeout requests approved, and you're going to notice down here that there is an installation protocol. I totally meant to highlight this as well, but down here it says that you are required to have a cemetery staff member inspect the memorial or inscription before you leave the properties. Especially important, if you leave a scrap of dirt on the property and you've already hightailed it out of there and you've got like an hour and a half drive home, they don't want that dirt there. They're going to call you up. You got to turn around, come back, pick the dirt up. So they need to inspect it before you head out of there. This is my actual insurance policy. As you'll see, we've got the general liability and we've got the workers' compensation coverage. $1 million policy on the workers' comp and the general liability. I don't know why it doesn't show it here, but we actually have coverage on the automobile as well. Quick note about workers' compensation here. If you want to check with your state regulations as far as this goes, if you are a one-man army and you're placing monuments inside of a cemetery by yourself, you might not need a workers' compensation policy. You might be able to get away with a business owner's policy, save you a little bit of money. So just look into that. Now we're going to unpack the different types of cemeteries that you might be dealing with. The first up is nonprofit cemeteries. These are typically your small town church cemeteries, Baptist, Episcopal churches, things of that nature. You've got your town-owned and city-owned cemeteries. These are locally owned by the local government. They're not owned on a federal level. Usually they're fairly easy to work with. You don't have to jump through a whole lot of hoops to be able to enter their grounds. You have national cemeteries, which are owned on a federal level. These are your veteran cemeteries, where you're gonna see like marble headstones and things of that nature, maybe a bunch of bronze in there, but it's gonna be all veterans. You've got your corporate cemeteries. You've got, really there's two main corporations in this industry that you might come across. One of them is Southern Corporation International. They also own Dignity Memorials. They own like 1,500 cemeteries throughout the U.S. And then the other one that you're gonna eventually come across, I'm gonna say their name currently is Everstory Partners. That's subject to change because they seem to change their name every other year. A lot of unethical business practices. They've got a really bad aura about them, so lots of lawsuits, lots of name changes. And then you've got your Catholic cemeteries. These cemeteries, we just showed you the insurance requirements for the Catholic cemeteries. It doesn't matter, like I said, which Catholic cemetery you're going to be dealing with. They have compliance that you don't have a choice but to adhere to. Not all Catholic cemeteries are created equal. The different archdioceses and different places will have different fee schedules, different insurance requirements. I think it was Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken, they wanted a $2 million insurance policy to be able to enter their ground. Then you have your private-owned cemeteries. I left this one at the bottom because these ones are the most diverse cemeteries that you could be dealing with. These could be the cemeteries that are on family land, that folks own easement rights to. Maybe they don't own the land anymore, but they still own the easement rights. These could be for-profit cemeteries, just owned by a private owner. But their rules and regulations are gonna be the most widespread, because some of them might just tell you to come on in, install a stone. Some of them might want you to jump through a bunch of hoops, the same way Catholic does. So when you're working with a cemetery, the first thing that you gotta do is understand the rules and regulations. This is going to tell you the size of the stones that are allowed, the style of stones that are allowed. They don't always include the depth requirements if you guys plan on installing headstones. Depth requirements are usually, a good rule of thumb is just make sure that you're going below frost line, especially in a place like here in Ohio. I'd imagine the frost line is around 3 feet or so. So you gotta make sure that you got really good depth on your footers. They're also gonna tell you the material standards that you're allowed to have. Some cemeteries, they might allow you to engrave a brick, place it on the burial site. Other cemeteries, you might need a bronze on granite. Others, they might require strictly uprights, but they might have a thickness requirement. You're going to have to submit a design. This is especially true with Catholic and corporate cemeteries. Catholic is pretty wide, universal in the design aspect of things. As as long as you've got some kind of Christian symbol on there, and you're not doing anything derogatory, they don't usually have an issue with approving designs. You've got an indemnification agreement, also known as a hold harmless. This we're going to unpack more here in just a moment. Then you've got your fee schedule. Actually, let me back up real quick. Alright, so if you notice the stakeout fee on the Catholic cemeteries here, it says, please note that the stakeout fee will increase to $185 as of June 2024. That is pretty common to have a fee when you're dealing with the cemetery. I beg of you, do not sell a stone and include cemetery fees in the costs, especially if you don't know what their fees are going to be. These can be really widespread depending on what kind of cemetery that you're dealing with. Like we just saw, Catholic Cemetery in the Washington area, it's $185 in all their cemeteries. In Chicago, we've got a stone getting ready to go over there. It's $1,200. So be real careful as to what you're dealing with. And the fees, it's not strictly a universal fee for the type of stone that you're dealing with either. You might have different fees for different types of stones. In the state of Maryland, especially, we just came across this, I'm constantly learning as well. They have now implemented what they call a bench rights fee. If you're doing a bench in a Maryland cemetery, you better know how much this fee is. National Harmony Cemetery in Adelphia, Maryland is $4,000. You do not want to be on the hook for a $4,000 bill. They're also going to inspect the site. That's where I just showed you in the Catholic portion of things. Corporate cemeteries, most of the time, work the same way. Do not leave the cemetery, as I said before, without getting the site inspected. Because, like I said, if you're an hour and a half away and you leave some dirt on the ground, they don't want no dirt on the ground, you're going to be really upset that you got to turn around just for a couple scoops of dirt. These are the work permits. The work permits vary greatly depending on who you're dealing with. To the left, we've got a town-owned cemetery. This is Culpeper Fairview Cemetery in the town of Culpeper, Virginia. As you see here, it's pretty cut and dry. You know, the stone company, your address, the type of stone that you're dealing with, the name of the person that's on the stone, their section, the size, and then a $50 permit fee, right? That's pretty, like I said, pretty standard. $50 to even that $185, that's not outlandish for cemeteries. However, you've got the guys on the right. That's Everstory Partners. As I said, that's their name now. Maybe it changes soon. This is especially important. So I mentioned the indemnification agreement earlier. I'm going to unpack that one just a little bit more. As I said before, I'm not a lawyer, so you want to consult with your lawyer as far as this goes. But speaking from personal experience, I ran into this scenario. There is a really bad, unethical practice in this industry where corporate cemeteries are leading families to believe that once you sign this indemnification agreement, that holds them harmless from anything that happens to the monument. They're halfway right. Let's say a tree falls, hits your monument, you're likely on the hook for that because of your warranty. But if somebody from their grounds crews nicks that stone, it's 100% on them. The same insurance that I showed you protects against damage to personal property. A cemetery plot is real property, just like your home would be. The headstone that sits on top of the burial site is private property, just like your possessions in your home. They hold the same insurance policies that protect against damage to private property. So you might run into that here and there. I get it constantly because we're surrounded by Everstory cemeteries. Now let's dive into the monuments. So you really only have three styles of monuments that cemeteries even allow. Like I said, there's always an exception to the rule. Church cemeteries, things of that nature, they don't always have rules and regulations. You might be able to get away with a brick or a rock. But for the most part, you are only going to be dealing with granite, which is the gray stone up top there, bronze on granite, which is Floyd's longest here on the bottom left, and marble. You're not going to be dealing with marble too much unless you're dealing with national cemeteries or a lot of veterans. I cannot encourage you enough to not use marble for headstones on a regular basis. They do not hold up the same way granite does. They're going to deteriorate. They're going to cause you a headache down the road. So, advise against it. You've got, we're going to talk about specific monument types that you'll see on a regular basis. Of course, there's a lot more than what I'm going to show you, but we're just going to focus on the main styles that you might be getting requests for. This is a standard serpentine top stone. To the left we have a single. To the right we have a double upright. The serpentine top, I mentioned, is just that curvature top up there. Just for the sake of showing you guys because we're already here, this is what you call a polished margin on this base. That one doesn't have one there. But these are your standard upright headstones. Then you've got slanted uprights. I don't have any current photos of slants, so these aren't the best photos. We had to go out and get photos of slants that we did years ago because we don't do them very often. It's mostly custom work that we do nowadays. These are bevel stones, also known as pillow stones. They're similar to flat stones, except for they got a pitch to it, usually like a 2-inch lean. And you can put them on a base, or you can leave them off of the base. This base here, you see the name that's actually carved into the base. This is what we call a chamfer base. That's a 3-inch name that you get engraved in there. Y'all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm going in and out probably because I keep turning my head, so I apologize for that. These are flat markers. I chose to show strictly the black ones because I'm going to show you guys something real cool here in just a moment. But these are really popular stones to do. You've got a laser engraver, you want to make some money, you want to get involved in memorials, and you want to make a splash and get some customers coming in quickly. What I do with my black flat markers is I offer a cash and carry option to my customers. As I mentioned, make sure that you're in compliance with the cemetery because you don't want to sell a customer a headstone that they ultimately can't use. So make sure that you understand that. But I have a cash and carry offer for these headstones. We do $600 and you take the stone away. They weigh about 120 pounds. But real quick while we're on it, does everybody have a Memorial Day sales page? Okay. So on page 16, in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got their flat markers. They come in a pack of 6. To the right, we're going to see if you order 10 or more, you get a 10% off coupon to go with it. Regular retail, they're like $179. So if you buy 10 of them, that's roughly $1,800. Knock off the 10%, you're at right around $1,600 or so. Then you factor in freight, $400 or $500, $2,100. Those same 10 stones, you sell them for $600 a piece. That's $600 return on a $2,100 investment. You got about $3,900 in profit. So, real quick for you guys. The people love the $600 cash and carry in Central Virginia. So if anybody's in Virginia, you might want to consider doing that. Even if you're not in Virginia, I would encourage doing the cash and carry. And as you see, those are all done with our AP laser. Yeah. I'm glad you asked that, because I was actually getting ready to talk about it. Yep. So, I personally do not encourage using any paint to highlight your stones. A lot of folks encourage it, and it does brighten your etching, it does make it look good. The reason why I don't do it is because eventually the paint's going to fade. There's nothing you can do about it, it's gonna happen. So you're gonna end up with a needless headache that you didn't ask for, that you didn't want. If you do the paint, you know how simple it is to actually get the paint in there, right? You just spray it with glass cleaner, and you just wipe the paint on there and then wipe it clean. So if you do add paint, just let the family know that eventually it's gonna break down, but it's pretty easy to replace, and empower them to do it themselves. That's just my personal preference. I don't like needless headaches that I can avoid if I can. As I mentioned, where we shine is in custom monument design. Nothing we do is ordinary anymore. People want to tell a story, and we love to tell their story. So pretty much everything that we do is custom design. That top left one was a real challenge. That base there is 9 feet long. The base alone weighed about 2,200 pounds or so. I can't recall exactly. But on the back side of that, and I wish I had put a picture on here now, hindsight's 2020. But on the back side of that stone, we tell their entire life story. Jerry Wayne, he was a former firefighter, former police officer. He was in the Army. We had all his credentials on the back side. On her side, she also worked for the police department. She owned a restaurant. So we etched all of their background onto the back of the stone. Even in bronze, we don't do nothing ordinary anymore. Everything's custom. Real quick, while we're on the topic of bronze, not all bronze is created equal. I mentioned earlier about material standards. If you're dealing with the bronze cemetery, you got a customer who comes and they need bronze, make sure that the bronze that you're going to use has the material makeup that they are going to accept in that cemetery. Some bronze has 10% or more of zinc in it. Some bronze has like 5% or less in there. Most cemeteries are going to want the 5% or less. Bronze is really expensive, even at wholesale prices. I don't know if Supernova does bronze at all, but you do not want to eat the cost of it because you didn't ensure that you were using the correct material. Now let's talk a little bit about installing monuments. There's some key tools that you're going to need. If you're starting small, especially because you bought an expensive laser and you've got some money tied up in launching your company, maybe you don't have $100,000 to throw at a crane truck. Maybe you've got a pickup truck and a trailer. You can get away with that. You're going to need a hand truck. You're going to need setting bars. You're going to need engineering compound. Remember that company right there, Miles Supply, because if you need anything for the monument industry, they are one of your go-to companies to get with. And I've got a list of just other tools and stuff that you're going to need when you are entering a cemetery to install a stone. One especially that I want to touch on is the probe. Most times you're not going to need a probe. But if you're dealing with a privately owned cemetery, as I mentioned, some folks have the cemetery on their family land, and then churches are notorious for just dropping nameplates on a site, but it doesn't necessarily tell you if you're a center on that site. So you need a probe to be able to shove down into the ground to find the edges of the vault. That way you can install the stone center on the actual site. And then I mentioned the Miles Supply, but you've also got these other companies here that you can reach out to. Granite Sales and Supply, they do the same thing as Miles Supply. And then you have Bicknell Supply. I just noticed that I spelled supply wrong. Got a short video, it's like 1.5 minutes. There's no sound to this, but I wanted it that way because I'm going to talk over it anyway. This is legacy headstones. They're somewhere in the Northeast, somewhere like Massachusetts type area. First thing you notice is that they're doing it in the snow. Don't install stones in the snow. Don't do it. If something bad's gonna happen, it's either gonna happen in the rain or the snow. But what they're doing is pretty cut and dry. Notice that they brought their hand cart over there. They just rolled the base right on there. They're getting ready to drop some boards onto the deck base. Now here, notice how he's dropping the handles all the way down. This dolly actually has a lip on it. And if you catch the edge of the stone with that lip, you might take a chunk out of it. So that's why he's dropping that dolly all the way down. And the boards, offer a couple different, let me back up real quick there. The boards offer a couple different protection opportunities for you. It protects the base from the actual hand part, and of course it protects the base from when you maneuver the top of the stone onto the base. You're not going to drop it heavy, granite to granite. It's really dense, heavy rock, but it's also it's real dense, heavy rock, but it's also really fragile. If you've ever worked with granite, you know how fragile it can be. I didn't mean to start it over. I thought I could rewind it. So, but where it left off, let it catch back up real quick. You'll notice that they're going to take a couple of pennies and shove them under the corners of the stone. This is a gray granite stone. Do not put pennies under the stone. I beg of you. Pennies are made up of like copper and other metals that will stain a headstone. You do want to put spacers under your stone, though. It helps with the install process, and it helps also stabilize the stone. You've got a laser. If you deal with acrylic at all, just cut with your scrap acrylic 1 inch by 1 inch blocks and use those instead of pennies. Mile Supply and granite, they'll sell you a box of acrylic for a bunch of money too if you want to pay for it, but if you got a laser, might as well cut your own. They're rolling out that engineering compound that we were just talking about. This is a weatherproofing sealant. It's going to adhere the top to the base, and it's not going to allow any moisture to get inside of it. I'm sorry?
The dates are on
Oh yeah, this is what you call a pre-need stone. Yeah, a pre-need stone. Yeah, I'm actually glad that you asked that. So, if you sell headstones pre-need, do not include the cost of the death date in there. I've had so many customers come to me and tell me that they need to get a headstone engraved because even though they were told that the death date would be included in the cost, they still need to get it engraved because now the company done lost the paperwork or whatever, or the family doesn't have the paperwork, so they can't prove that they got the death date with it. And there's really no way to account for that anyway. If somebody lives another 20 years, inflation's going to hit, and you don't want to be on the hook for having to go out there and engrave something with 20 years of inflation involved. So now that we know what monuments we're dealing with, how to work with the cemeteries, and how to be in compliance with the cemeteries and how to install the stones, now we just need to know how to sell the monuments.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Installation. Is that a 3-foot concrete foundation?
So it really depends on the cemetery requirements. If they have a requirement on the depth, I mentioned earlier that a good rule of thumb is to go under the frost line. So here in Ohio, you're probably going to want to go about 4 feet or so. Because if frost gets up underneath that stone, it can push it up and out of the ground.
No, you subbed out, or for you do that?
So we sub out our installs. Up until just recently, about 2 months ago, I was still doing it, even with the muscular dystrophy. So if there's anything for you guys to take home today, is if I can, you can, right? But with that being said, we did recently sell our crane truck and all of our install equipment, and I have a guy that handles all that for me now.
The foundation, is it dig it out, wood, like build it form?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish that the video that I put on there actually showed, I couldn't find a good video that was condensed enough to show the actual foundation. A good rule of thumb with your foundations is some people will drive them straight down that full 4 feet all the way across. That's not the best idea in the world. What you want to do is actually dig your foundation about that 3-foot range, and then take some post hole diggers and choose 3 different spots, and especially in the larger stones, and drive it down about another foot. So you have posts that'll help stabilize it as well. Yeah. Then you're just gonna pour, depending on your cemetery, where you are, all that stuff, you might be able to do a what they call a wet-dry mix. It's where you start out real wet, get drier as you go, and then you can place the stone the same day that you pour the concrete. Other cemeteries, they might want you to give them the concrete 48 hours before you're even allowed to come and place the stone. And then you might get lucky and the cemetery does the footer themselves. Yeah, because when you dig a footer, you probably want to have some kind of warranty with the level of that footer. Because of course it helps ease the worry of the customer that you're dealing with. And if you do good work and good footers, you don't have to worry about your footer tilting or anything like that. We're actually going to talk about that a little bit more with the service agreement portion of this as well. Did I answer your question good enough? So when you are ready to sell a monument, you are going to set up your initial consultation with your customers. And you're going to gather their information, the loved one's information, exactly what they're looking for, what they need, all that jazz. I would highly encourage you during the initial consultation, get on the phone, call the cemetery that they're working with, get all that information that I was telling you guys about earlier with the insurance requirements and the rules and regulations and the fee schedule. Put the cemetery on speakerphone while you're talking to them, and let the customers actually hear it for themselves. Because a lot of times you might tell a customer, hey, our fee is $3,500 for this headstone, but you've got a $600 bill with the cemetery that isn't incorporated in ours. And they're like, well, I've never heard of that. So just give them that affirmation, call the cemetery while you're dealing with them, and it takes all the guesswork and it'll save you a whole bunch of headaches. Set clear, achievable expectations. In the monument industry, especially since COVID, it's notorious for dragging. Some quarries, you're looking at 8 to 12 months to be able to even get your granite. So you don't want to be coming up on like Memorial Day and telling your family 3 weeks out that you can produce a monument that you don't actually have, and then Memorial Day comes around, you can't get the granite, and then you got a mad family. So make sure that the expectations that you're setting are clear and that they're achievable. Provide them with the customer roadmap. Like I said, it's a journey that you're going on, because you've got the production process, you've got the design process. A lot of times you do a preliminary design, then you do a production design. The preliminary strictly to show them what it could look like, send it to the cemetery. It's not at true scale, but it just gives them an idea. The cemetery approves it or tells you need to make adjustments. You get it back, and you make the production drawing. Your service agreement will be the install side of things. There, you're going to set the proper expectations of, of course, the install side. That's going to entail your warranties, if you make any warranties on your headstone. There's a company, anybody ever heard of Rock of Ages? Anybody familiar with them? All right, so Rock of Ages is a granite supplier, a lot like Supernova. They got really popular, I think it's like the 90s or something like that, by telling everybody that they had the best warranty in the industry because they had a 5-year perpetual warranty. What they didn't tell people is if the stone gets hit by a lawnmower, that they're not replacing it, but if it is an act of God, they're going to replace it. Your granite that you would get from Supernova is no different than their granite, and you can give that same 500-year warranty if that's what you want to do. But just be mindful that, make sure that they're aware that you are not responsible for the negligence of an outside source. And you've got your sales agreement. You're gonna clearly identify your sales terms with them, how much the stone's gonna cost, if you're doing financing with them. If you plan to do financing at all, don't do in-house financing. Get with a third-party supplier. UC AP Laser, they've got their capital group back there that you can talk to get a loan to buy a laser. Same thing with headstones, because they cost a small fortune, and you can run into a bottleneck financially really quick if you're waiting on stones to get produced and you're trying to do in-house financing. Then you've got your after-sales support. Like I said, once you sell the stone, it doesn't stop there. You still got the production process. You still got the installation process. So just keep them up to date as to where you are with things. If you can provide photos of the production process, families really love that. If you can get any video of the production process, they really love that as well, and they're super appreciative of it. Don't be the pushy salesman though. Nobody likes a pushy car salesman. Instead, and this is why I really appreciate Tom for bringing me out here, because his vision and my vision are cohesive. We are in alignment with our core values. We create relationships that transcend transactions. That almost every post that I put out there, I talk about transcending a transaction to my families. And if you visit any of my social media, you'll see families from 5, 6 years ago that are still commenting on my posts, still talking about how much they love what I did for them. And we just have that relationship that we've grown into. And the way that you do that just doesn't cost you anything to be kind, right? To fill them with kindness. Come at them from a place of understanding. They just lost a loved one, they're in a vulnerable state of mind. You understand how that feels, so just be mindful of that. Be empathetic, because if you've lost a loved one before, like I said, you felt that impact of what it feels like to lose a loved one. You know what that hurt is like. So just show them that you too have felt that pain and that you fully understand where they're coming from. Educate them. A educated purchase is always a good purchase. So educate them on the design process, educate them on the production process, educate them on the branding. Over deliver. This is where the after sales support really pays off for you guys, because they're just going to be grateful that 6 months, if it takes you 6 months to produce a stone, it's going by, but they've gotten updates, so they don't feel like you've just forgotten about them and they're lost in the shuffle. Nurture that relationship. Like I said, I've got families that still comment on all my posts. Most of the families that I deal with, they find me on Facebook, they send me a friend request, we become Facebook friends. I comment on their birthdays, I comment on their kids' birthdays, they comment on my kids' birthdays, so we nurture that relationship. Now that we know how to deal with families, we know how to set stones, we know how to deal with the cemeteries, we know how to be in compliance with the law, now we're ready to launch a business. This industry specifically, I know Nick talked a little bit about, well actually he didn't really talk about Facebook at all yesterday, he said it was his nemesis. So we're going to dive a little bit into Facebook and why it's important to be on Facebook in this industry. So launching your business, make sure that you get on Facebook and other social media sites, but like I said, Facebook especially. Open up your Google and Bing business pages, and this isn't just strictly for the memorial industry. Any company that you run, make sure that you're on Bing, make sure you're on Google, make sure you're on all the different pages that you can be on, Foursquare, things like that. And real quick, if you do a Google page first, you can just transfer everything to Bing, and you won't even have to set Bing up, it just transfers right over. list your business on online directories. This is some tedious stuff. You can pay somebody to do it if you want to, or you can take the time to do it yourself. You're sitting at home, and late one evening, you're just sitting in bed, like, I don't know what to do, I'm getting stir crazy. Pick up your laptop and start listening on online business directories. These are your Yellow Pages, they're your Yelps. Even Yahoo is more or less an online directory at this point, rather than a search engine. Get listed on there. Every one of these pages is going to try to sell you on marketing. Ignore it. Don't pay for any of the marketing on any of those platforms. Strictly, the reasoning behind getting on the business directories is because those directories offer affirmation and confirmation to Google and Bing web crawlers, showing that you are definitely a business and that where you state you are is where you are, and all that jazz. So why market on Facebook specifically? Well, it is and will continue to be the largest social media platform in the world. That hasn't changed, and it's probably not going to change anytime soon, and it's still growing. 2.91 billion users at the start of 2022, 3+ billion users at the end of Q4 in 2023. Over half the US population are active users on Facebook. And the biggest reasoning of all, in this industry specifically, baby boomers, probably heard Tom Lee talk about baby boomers if you talk to them. Senior citizens are on Facebook more so than any other social media platform. That's where they can see their grandkids grow up. That's where they can talk to their sons and daughters. They're not necessarily watching them on TikTok or YouTube. Tips for Facebook. We don't have to unpack too much of this because Nick did go over a lot of it. Like the create content that promotes engagement without directly asking for it. He mentioned the blue or purple or whatever yesterday. I do that with headstones a lot. I've actually got I meant to actually put them in here. It's what I call economy-sized butterfly headstones. They're cut in the shape of a butterfly. We color the butterfly different colors. I post them on Facebook, blue and green. A lot of people comment, I like blue, I like green. People aren't just commenting on the colors. They're like, well, how do I get my hands on them? How much are they, do they cost? How big are they? How much do they weigh? It just creates engagement, and you didn't even say, hey, engage with me. Avoid being salesy. Can't beat this one into your heads enough. If Facebook feels you're being salesy, they will dock you for organic reach. Let's say you post same day, same time, every week, and you've got consistent numbers, and one week you say something about, hey, go to my website and buy this, and you notice that your reach has dropped dramatically, that's why. Add links above the fold. If you have to add a link, I would suggest you not to add a link, let it marinate and generate itself. But if you have to add a link, do it above the fold. The fold is where it's that more button. If you're on your cell phone, it'll say more and it'll drop the screen down to show you the whole post. So your link would go there. Some folks will tell you to put it in the top comment, be your first commenter and put it in there. That's a no-go. 100% go live. We're not going to go too much into that because Nick discussed that pretty good yesterday. A lot of people don't realize when you're posting on Facebook, even on your personal page, you have call to action buttons that you can add to your post. You don't have to pay for the call to action buttons. A lot of people believe that you have to do paid advertising to be able to do a shop now button or a book now button if you want to get leads. You don't have to do that. When you post your post, go ahead and post it, and then go to the little three buttons, edit your post, and you got other three buttons at the bottom right hand of your screen. Click that. It should bring a drop down. You should be able to do shop now, call now, whatever you want to do on there. Send message is my personal favorite because it's way easier to send somebody a message than pick up the phone and call. Recycle your top performing content. I do this regularly. One of my best ways to get engagement with my families is I tell my personal story. I tell them about, in 2014, I took a $1,500 tax return and purchased headstones with it, and it's grown into what it is now. I've also got muscular dystrophy, and I just kind of work all that, and I grip them because I've told my personal story, and they can relate to that. Nick mentioned yesterday, borrow ideas. He mentioned steal. There's a lot to be said for that. Who's heard of Beyonce? Anybody here know Beyonce? Who knows Drake? So, these guys are really popular. They're the top of the top, right? They don't even have fresh ideas. Everything they do comes from another source. There's actually a documentary about Beyonce and how she borrows ideas from other folks. Like when she did the Super Bowl, y'all remember when she did the Super Bowl halftime show? Almost that entire performance was done over, I think, in Africa or something like that by another performer using the same visuals and everything. But because she's not so popular and Beyonce is, she was able to borrow that idea and blow it up. In this industry specifically, you can go to my page to borrow ideas if you need to. There's some really popular guys down in Houston, Texas. Memorials by Cortland is one of them. Another one is R&B Monuments. And then the creme de la creme guy in this industry, because there is a celebrity monument dealer out here. Most people don't know of him. Over in Washington, I can't think of the exact area. Cemetery Tim is his name. He's got like 500,000 Facebook followers. This guy does all of the rapper headstones. He does all of the celebrity headstones. He shot a video before Tony Lister passed away. Debo from Friday. They shot a video. Debo rides up on his bike, and Cemetery Tim sitting in front of his building. He's got a gold chain on, and Debo snatches his chain from him, and then he offers him a headstone for a loved one. And they have a good sit down. Debo gives him his chain back, and he buys a headstone from him. Look him up if and when you can. Paid marketing tips. Target without targeting. Facebook has the most robust targeting system in the world. They have the most data in the world when it comes to marketing. Their algorithm is so complex, they're smarter than you and I, right? So let Facebook weed out and find your customers for you. This is if you plan on doing Facebook marketing ads, which I would encourage you to do so. As I mentioned, let the Facebook algorithm do the work. If you plan to run sales ads, leads ads, any of the above, gurus nowadays will try to tell you do not run engagement ads before other ads. That's baloney. Run engagement ads. The reason being is the more engagement you get on your engagement ads, the lower your cost per acquisition for sales and leads ads. That's your CPA. It 100% translates. So do run engagement ads first. Don't worry about the Facebook expected results. Facebook will tell you if you drop $200 in there for the next week, maybe you'll reach 20,000 people, or maybe you'll reach 0. Ignore that number. Facebook's here to make some money, so they're gonna just give you some nonsense number hoping that you drop some more money in there. Let the law of averages work. The law of averages state if you put it in front of enough people, you're bound to get some customers, right? And that's exactly what's going to happen with Facebook if you just let the algorithm eat. Do we have any questions about all that we unpacked? Yes, ma'am.
The first one, because we're talking about the marketing,
Mhm.
a lot of the terms, especially for older generations, doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
Is there any targeted, like, classes or online teachings that you saw that really helps you fine tune that to know what those engagement and how to do all that?
Oh yeah, so write down the name Mari Smith.
Maury?
Mari, M-A-R-I, and Smith. She is known as the Facebook Queen. Before coming, I've traveled all over the U.S. going to different like Facebook marketing events and stuff like that. Mari Smith is by far the best person to learn about organic tips and stuff from. A lot of her content's free, and of course you can do like the paid content with her and actually get into her ecosystem that way. But really, if you just implement what she's talking about on the free side of things, you'll be able to grow.
Question number
Mhm.
2. I would like to eventually, because where I live, there are a number of bases, I'd like to eventually get into government contracts
Yeah.
for schools. And when you were talking about like military cemeteries and
Mhm.
things like that, do you have any tips or guidance or anything on that?
So, national cemeteries are actually, every national cemetery, you can just call them up. As long as you already have a business in place,
Right.
you can just call them up, tell them who you are, the service that you offer, and they'll put you on a list that they'll provide families.
Okay.
You are not guaranteed the call though. They can't guarantee you anything beyond that. You're just gonna get on that list and you're gonna hope for the best. Yeah. Sam.gov? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I was trying to figure out, because I know when you establish a business in there and set up, it's gotta be set up a certain way. Yeah, my husband's disabled,
Yeah, swam certificate.
yeah, because my husband's a 100% permanent disabled veteran, so I want it to be woman veteran owned, but because of his disability, he's late stage Alzheimer's, he's not.
Go to SBA.gov.
Mhm.
SBA.gov. That's the perfect spot. But there's all kinds of resources as far as the company, because if he's a veteran and disabled, there's
But he's
advantages
nonverbal,
there
nothing.
too.
Because the thing about it is the VA has a lot of programs, but when I've approached them, oh, you're not the veteran. And it's like, but I've been caregiving for 18 years and put my life on hold, and I'm trying to establish myself. So-
USDA.gov. And there's some like mentorship things in there where you can connect with somebody and they'll kind of hold your hand and walk you through it.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.